Thanks, Jerry. Sorry about that. That's all right, Jake. That's all right.
Notebook number 6 in the first one after a loss for Ohio State. Beginning right here, we are in Eugene, Oregon at Autzen Stadium. Site of a thriller between number 2 Ohio State, number 3 Oregon. The Ducks win it 32-31, just leaving the media tent. Not going to talk too much about the setup and just complain about the stuff that was incredibly difficult for us, because I think that this game, probably merits more conversation about what actually happened. And it just truly wild back and forth game, out of character stuff for some of the Buckeyes, and then it comes down to one final play as they're starting to pack up these buses and head back to Columbus. Going to be a long flight. It's going to be a long 2 weeks for Ohio State before they get back on the field to go into the off date. Now 5-1, no longer in full control of their destiny in the Big Ten. You see some of the families over here wrapping things up for everyone that made it out here. It was a great Ohio State crowd, not just the friends and families, but you hear third down situations where Ohio State's fans, third down defensive situations where the Ohio State fans were making a ton of noise. They were ready to rock, just as the Oregon crowd was too. So, hey, it was a hell of a game. The season is not over for Ohio State, but they have now used their mulligan. Worm's got some stuff to do over there. I'll let him go. So they have to play at Penn State in the first week in November. Penn State is in position. You've got Nebraska in 2 weeks after this off date. And Will Howard said in his post-game press conference, Oregon, obviously a hell of a team, and that he thinks that they're probably going to see them again. I think that's probably fair, but this game is going to sting not just because of the way it ended, which Will Howard is scrambling. He said that they were trying to get 15 more yards to get in the field goal range. Clock expires as he's trying to get down. The flood concept that they ran into the boundary to try and pick up some of those yards was defended. He saw a pass rush in his face, which I'm good, thank you.
No, it's your stats.
Yeah, no, I don't need that, thank you. First example of Oregon trying to be helpful this weekend. I only made it a couple minutes without complaining. The Oregon fans still out here. They don't want to leave. They don't want to stop celebrating. They earned the right to celebrate. They played. Their fans brought it. A wild scene. The field rushing. I don't know if there's people still out there partying or not. I guess we'll go find out. But this will sting for more than just Ohio State losing a game, for falling behind in the standings in the Big Ten championship race, for, they're not going to fall out of college football playoff position after this loss. But as I said, the breathing room that they had in this 12-team playoff is now gone. Could they still get in with 2 losses? Yeah, but that's asking a lot of, if you assume that they can't go on the road and beat Penn State, if that would be where the second loss comes, is that resume going to be good enough? Will there be other wins on there that would qualify as impressive enough on the Ohio State resume? This would have been one where if the Buckeyes go on the road, cross those time zones, beat the number 3 team in the country, then you're looking, well, basically they've clinched the playoff spot. Now they're on the precipice of potentially being knocked out of it. They're not yet. There's still plenty of opportunity for the Buckeyes to get back in it. But aside from the resume part, you have Josh Simmons, who Ryan Day says doesn't look good for his chances to return this year. That is a huge deal for the starting left tackle, who I think had probably been playing better than anybody else on that offensive line. I thought they put in Zen Mahalski. He answered the challenge, I think, pretty well. Ohio State scored 31 points on Oregon. You're not going to, I don't think, discredit that effort from them. They also had Tegra Shabola dealing with an injury. They put in Austin Sareveld for those stretches. I thought that he played pretty well. The offense didn't execute quite as efficiently in the second half as it did in the first, but sure felt like it did enough things to win this game for them. And the defense, the Silver Bullets, that was not their finest effort. And so you're, again, looking at another Ohio State big game, another top 10 matchup, top 5 matchup where the defense cannot get the stops that it needs. Whether you want to point at the breakdowns in the secondary with coverage. Denzel Burke got beat more times on Saturday night than I think he has in his entire career. Is it because the coverage wasn't good enough? Is it because the pass rush is not getting home? It might be a chicken or the egg argument. It could be both. And if it's both, well, then that's a very different conversation that Ohio State has to have. Jim Knowles did come into the post-game tent and talked about what happened tonight. He said he's got to put it on himself. The bad plays he owns, and there were way too many of them. It's just hard for me to understand. I'll get to some of the plays and the good stuff here in a little bit. And I don't know if anybody really even wants to hear that on the notebook this week, but a team with 5 stars like JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, how they can be almost non-existent for long stretches of the game. Dylan Gabriel is out here doing pretty much whatever he wants. There were some missed tackles, certainly on Dylan Gabriel's rushing touchdown. I find myself just perplexed at what is going on with Ohio State's defensive line. Tyleik Williams played pretty well. I thought that the tackles were largely solid, but then you would look out there, and there were times and like, well, Tyleik Williams isn't out there, Ty Hamilton's not out there. I don't necessarily understand some of the I've talked about this for many years. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but in key situations against an opponent like this, it's like Ohio State is sacrificing its own high-end talent, and I don't fully understand why. It's not. I don't have to. Doesn't make any difference to me if I understand it. But when it leads to results like this, which had some hallmarks and callbacks to what happened in the losses to Michigan, with not winning in the trenches and not getting pressure on the quarterback, I mean, I think that's where the questions begin for me. That's not to say that is what directly caused some of the breakdowns in the secondary. And Denzel Burke came back to prove that he was going to be a first-round pick. He wanted to be the best cornerback in America. And Oregon picked on him pretty much start to finish. I know he's going to go back to work and try and get that corrected, but that was going to be a painful one for him. There's no doubt about that. So started great. Felt like Ohio State was going to take control of that game right off the bat. They did. Early drive. Will Howard with a little bulldozer run in there for the touchdown. 7-0. Oregon looks a little shell-shocked, and then you get open field tackle there early with Sonny Styles on a nice play. It's like, okay, well, here they go. And then Quinshon Judkins, which I did not see. He had a little tape on his right hand before he went out for warm-ups. I didn't see any kind of additional cast or padding or anything on that once he went back out there for the game. So I don't know if there was a hand injury definitively or not, but he gets stripped and Oregon gets good field position. They go cash that in.
Wait, come back.
Hey, look.
This way, go this way.
It's television's Adam King.
What? I'm sorry I missed you guys last week. We'll talk later.
We'll talk later, okay.
How much swap do you have?
Well, you can, do your own job first. It's a scramble here at Oregon on a Saturday night. But then you have the fumble. Same thing that we talked about. If Ohio State wins the turnover battle, it's hard to imagine Oregon winning this game. You have that. You have the onside kick. I don't know if maybe designed, maybe not. They just drill the ball at C.J. Hicks, who was wearing number 48. What? Was it? Well, Ryan Day did say in the postgame, I guess I don't know. Ryan Day said Caleb's name in the postgame, but in the press box they told us that C.J. Hicks had put on 48, that 11 went into 48, but Berm is telling me that there's maybe some indecision on that. Either way, situation that Ohio State said that they had actually prepared for, but that ball gets drilled off of Ohio State. They don't recover it, so they lose another possession there. And we had this first time really for this season where we see the penalties become an issue. You have, right after Oregon's touchdown, a false start from Josh Simmons, a false start from G. Scott, and a delay of game penalty on a punt. So here is Will Kazmarek with the arm sling, another injury for Ohio State. As he gets on the bus, gets out of here. Buckeyes heading for the exit here. Everyone appears to be on. Nope, one more. Last one on Davis and Igbinosin, who got spit on in by Trayshawn Holden. One of the grossest things that you're ever going to see. An ejection for that. Just truly bizarre things happening all night, including that. So I don't know what to say about all this stuff, because I thought even with those mistakes, even with the turnovers, Ohio State's only trailing by 1 going into halftime. It's like, well, they're going to make adjustments. They've been a second half team. They're really well coached. Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles will find some things that get it going. And then even they come out of the locker room, and there were so many insane things that happened. The Notebook had to use 4 pages tonight. But you've got Jeremiah Smith on a great play for Ohio State to take the lead. Will Howard has pretty good protection, but steps up in the pocket, scrambles out there, hits Jeremiah Smith for the touchdown. That was after Caden Curry made a tremendous play to go run down Gabriel on the opening offensive drive for Oregon there in the third quarter. It's like, okay, here they go. They get a stop on a 4th and goal later in the third quarter. It's like, okay, it's 28-22 as the third quarter is winding down. It felt like Ohio State had the game under control there, and then they just didn't. In the fourth quarter, they could not make the plays that they needed to defensively. On offense, this last drive, it felt like it was built for them. They were going to be able to polish that off the way they needed to. They go right down the field. I think we'll probably be spending a lot of time in the next 2 weeks talking about the pass interference call. It's not, you never want to blame the officiating when you lose a game. And Ryan Day said it shouldn't come down to one play, leave no doubt, knock them out. They weren't able to do that. You put the game in the hands of the official. That's not the situation that you want to be in. But, Berm had a much better vantage point of this from me, but previously on that drive, Jeremiah Smith is getting absolutely mugged. So it looked like the official was already reaching for the back pocket. They don't throw the flag there. And that was like, hey, maybe let the players actually decide this thing. And Ohio State was making plays. They were moving the football down the field. Will Howard played a hell of a football game, in my opinion. And I think he's going to get talked about a lot in the days ahead for the scramble decision, for not getting down in time for Ohio State to get a field goal attempted. I don't know what else he could do based on what Ohio State was asking in terms of yardage and with the timing on the clock. They were hurt a little bit as well by Oregon's penalty for 12 men on the field. They lost some time there. They got the yardage back, but they needed time more than they needed anything else at that point. So that wasn't executed as well as they wanted. The rest of the drive, though, had been successful, really good. It was like, that felt more like the Notre Dame comeback win. What's that? It's in there. Okay. Well, we'll actually give you a look here of the beautiful post-game room here at Oregon. It's spacious, luxurious accommodations. And, nice pile of stats if anybody wants to take that home. But I don't. Berm and I are going to wrap things up here at Autzen Stadium. 32-31. Ohio State loses there, 5-1. They fall to 2-1 in the Big Ten. And the road back to a championship just got a little rockier for them. So, interesting days ahead. It's going to be a long 2 weeks for Ohio State. It's going to be a long 2 weeks breaking that all down on the podcast. But we're going to do that, as we always do. Heading back from Eugene, Oregon, we appreciate everyone following along with all the coverage that we provided from this one. It was a hell of a game. I think sometimes you don't win them if you're Ohio State, but they've still got opportunities to get back in it. We'll see if they can when they get back on the field in 2 weeks against Nebraska. Thanks to Jeremy Birmingham for all the camera work. Thanks for everybody watching on the podcast. I'm Austin Ward. This has been The Notebook. We'll see you next time.